Peace and blessings, family. Welcome back to the channel, new and returning overseas in America. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you all so much for being here, for being a part of this community, a part of this sacred space. It is I, the Geechee Empress, okay? And we are in the middle of Hoodoo Heritage Month, y'all. All right. Now, y'all know that for the month of October, I'm doing these videos and teachings in honor of Hoodoo Heritage Month from the lens of the Gullah Geechee from the Low Country area of South Carolina. In our last video, we talked about what Hoodoo is and what Hoodoo isn't. We also discussed the differences between Hoodoo and Voodoo. And if you missed those videos, I encourage you to circle back, catch up, and then come back to this one. In today's video, we're going to go a little bit deeper because I want to talk about something that I honestly hold with reverence, okay? And that's our elders. How they moved, their discretion, their silence, the sacred codes that they lived by, even when they never said anything, okay? Because I want to be clear about something. Our grandmothers, our aunties, our big mamas, okay, they were not walking around talking about, I'm doing hoodoo tonight. Like, no one ever said, yeah, I'm about to go do this protection spell. They didn't label the work, right? My grandmother didn't used to say, okay, you're going to take a spiritual bath tonight. Or go get that conjure oil or that conditioning oil off the dresser for me. I never heard those words growing up because they didn't talk like that. They didn't call it any of that because they didn't have to, honestly, right? This work was not performance-based for the elders, okay? It was about preservation. Okay, it was honestly inherited. Okay, it's an inheritance, right? So instead of saying things like, I'm doing hoodoo tonight, or, you know, spiritual baths, or I'm doing this protection spell, things I heard would be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fix her. Or, don't worry, I handled it. Or, it's already done. Or even, I swept the house. Okay? Things like that was all they needed to say. And when they said that, baby, we knew what time it was. All right? What I love about the way that our people moved back then was it wasn't loud. Like, it wasn't loud. They wasn't doing shit for show. Okay? And it wasn't for everybody. Because root work lived in the shadows. Not necessarily because it was dark, but because it was private. And I feel like it was private and it was sacred. And I feel like today it has lost that privacy, okay, and that level of sacredness. I was reflecting the other day and just thinking about my grandmothers, my great grandmothers, my great aunties. And I'm like, you know what? The same hands that baked our biscuits from scratch, okay, and washed my hair and straightened it out with the hot comb were the same hands that prayed over me as I slept. The same hands that laid hands on me when I would be sick or have a headache, those same hands tied sachets and mojo bags, okay? Placed scriptures under pillows, placed names in the Bible, whispered psalms in the water, like those same hands. The old folks back then did not go around broadcasting their rituals. They didn't post about it. They couldn't. There was no internet back then. But you get what I'm saying? Like, y'all know what we see today. And what we see today is not how this was handled back when our elders were here. I get asked a lot. Well, I used to get asked a lot. Like, how come I don't post, like, if I do a ritual or like my altar, right? Especially if I'm teaching, you know, how to set up an altar. And it's like, because that's sacred, because I don't post my work. And I know that a lot of people do, to each their own. That's just not what I do, because that's not what I come from. That is not, that goes against my beliefs and the teachings of my elders. Your work is sacred. Like, you are supposed to be able to handle something, if you need to handle something in a moment right there on the spot, without anybody knowing that you're handling something. And that's how I operate. And so, you know, no, I don't post. I'm never going to post like a ritual, any of my altar. Like, I'm never going to do that, because that is private. It's between me and spirit and my ancestors. Right? Now, if I'm doing personal work, you know, I may send like pictures, little video snippets of the work, because, you know, just so like, especially if the candle's burning a certain kind of way, like if that flame is doing something, because I'm doing a voiceover on that video explaining what that flame is doing, explaining what that candle is doing, explaining what this leftover wax means, or what, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of interpreting. That's about the only time. But to say, take a picture and put it like on YouTube or Instagram or something like that, no ma'am, no sir. No. I don't come from these times, like this new school hoodoo. I don't come from that. Okay? The old folks did not announce, like, when they're fasting or when they have a breakthrough. And I'm not saying that you can't share, right? Because we all have testimonies, you know what I'm saying? And so, yes, if you want to share, if you want to talk about the goodness of God and how spirit has moved in your life, or how your ancestors, you know, came through for you, it's like, by all means, share, beloved. But move in a way that is sacred, even in your sharing. And I hope that makes sense. Our elders had signs, right? Quiet signs. Like, for instance, if my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, swept the front porch at night, and she's humming at the same time, baby, something shifted. Something shifted. If something was burned in that sink, something was being cleared out. If they handed you a white cloth, okay, or like a handkerchief or something, and a glass of water, you were being reset. That's really how that was. No joke. It was just that quiet. It's almost like they had their own language, a whole damn language rooted in silence, in knowing, and in trust. And I'm going to tell you, back then, we didn't ask too many questions. If they let you sit and watch, cool. Okay, because that meant you were being trained without them telling you that you were being trained. You understand what I'm saying? Like, You know, they didn't say, okay, come on, let me teach you this hoodoo. No. But come on in here and help me do something, or come in here and sit down and watch. And sometimes they didn't say anything, but you were being trained. Now today, some people, only practice hoodoo for the sake of aesthetics, for the sake of trend, and even for fast results. But like, this ain't about aesthetics, y'all. And I'm gonna tell you something. Playing around with spirituality for the sake of aesthetics can potentially be highly dangerous. Okay? It's nothing to play with. All right? Hoodoo, spirituality, it's not about aesthetics. It's not about the look. It's about alignment. You know how many times I've had someone say to me, oh, you don't look like, someone who da-da-da-da-da. And how does it look? What does it look like? You understand what I'm saying? Or even I've had someone ask me one day, oh, are you one of those earth women? What is an earth woman? What is that? People are too big on aesthetics nowadays. And my thing is, don't get yourself caught up in something because you look at someone and judge a book by its cover. Okay? That's something to keep in mind. And that's free game. Okay? Listen, y'all, this is again, this is more about alignment than anything. It's not about aesthetics. It's about protection. It's about preservation, okay? And just because you saw a reel or some shit on TikTok does not mean that you understand the weight of the responsibility that goes behind the work. Okay? If you have not prayed, fasted, repented, or healed, you are not ready for the work. There are too many people doing this work unhealed. Okay? If you cannot honor your people, your land, your lineage, you are not ready for the work, because the elders moved the way that they did because they understood the weight of this work. Let this remind you, everything is not meant to be named. Everything is not meant to be shared. Hoodoo is closed for a reason. And some things are best whispered in the dark while spirit listens. So for those of you who this is your lineage, okay? This is in your bloodline, but you feel like for whatever reason, maybe you have a roommate, you live with someone, you can't openly practice the way that you think practice is supposed to look based upon what you see online and on social media. Listen, beloved, it don't take all that. It don't take all that. Okay? Sometimes it is as silent as you going in your secret place and saying 2 or 3 words. And I'm so serious. It doesn't always take an elaborate setup. It does not always take, these colorful candles and all of these herbs. And that's cool if you do that, right? It's cool. But it doesn't take that. Because if you carry the anointing, then you don't need a tool or anything else outside of you anyway. If you walk with that anointing, okay? And a lot of times, what I have found is sometimes that anointing is the missing piece. Okay? For those who, I've had a couple of people reach out and it's like, what do I do if I can't put up an altar in my space because I live with family or I'm in college? Listen, You are the vessel. You are the altar. Live right, whatever that means to you, whatever that looks like to you, according to your beliefs, according to your higher power, according to the ways of your ancestors, right? Alignment, because living right is really just, it's alignment. You are the altar. Your tongue is, need I go on? You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't always take all of that. And truth be told, everyone's not supposed to have an altar anyway. Okay? I want to close with this because I'm over 15 minutes, y'all. Honor your elders. Like, honor your elders. Venerate the ancestors. Pay attention to how your elders move. If you have elders that are still here living in the flesh on this side, pay attention to how they move. Be a sponge and soak up as much knowledge as you can. And don't be so quick to speak on shit that you have barely touched or things that you have barely scratched the surface of. All right? I love y'all. I'm going to put a pin in it, okay? I'm going to put a pin in it. I want you to know that the power is in your hands. It is in your prayers, but it is also in your silence, okay? Until next time, y'all walk heavy, stay rooted, and move sacred. Ashe.